Hey there YouTube, I'm Ikitsu, this is Ikitsu Times. Welcome to my channel and welcome to a little bit of Sins of Solar Empire 2. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about the Visari with the Ravastra Skirmisher. This is the basic frigate that they've got. Now I have to put a bit of a disclaimer here. I don't really play the Visari. I play a little tiny bit of tech and I play a lot of Advent, but I don't really play the Visari because I do not get how they work very well. And that isn't to say I don't know how their ships work. When I'm playing against them, I have a very good understanding of how each of their ships work. It's just their economy is set up in such a way that I don't really grasp it very well because it's extremely different from tech or Advent's economies. All of them sort of have their own sort of unique quirks to it, like tech, Advent, and the various subgroups of it. Visari's is completely different because they don't get any credits whatsoever, making it very difficult to tell exactly how much it is that they're getting compared to everyone else. What's more, they don't necessarily get that much more in terms of their other materials. They do get more of it, but they don't get that much more of it, which makes it really hard to cross-compare their ships to other people's. So, in any event, though, let's talk a little bit about the Ravastra Skirmisher here.
I need orders.
So, this thing is by far the most elite out of all of the basic frigates. It has a durability of 120, which is very weird. It's got 660 shield points, 630 armor points, and 910 hull points. It has one medium pulse gun at 12 damage per second with 200 pierce. This thing's got hidden statistics of 48 armor strength, and it's got 960 maximum speed. So it is the slowest out of the three of them, but other than that, all of its statistics are quite a bit higher across the board. That includes them having even more armor than the Cobalt, and having a much better gun. Now, where this thing becomes weaker than the other ones is its cost compared to the others. Again, I don't know exactly how to calculate this properly. However, let's take a look at the cost here. So, this thing costs 135 metal and 15 crystal. Now, it is actually cheaper than the others under some calculations, depending on if you go with the ×2 or the ×3. If you go with all metal is worth 2 credits, and crystals are worth 2 credits, then you end up in a situation where this is actually quite cheap. However, I don't necessarily know that that's what you would use under the circumstance, and the ×3 calculation I think is probably more appropriate, in which case this is a decent amount more expensive than the other two. But what we can sort of tell in terms of its cost is that it has a supply cost of 7 compared to 4 for the Disciple or 5 for the Cobalt Light Frigate. So if we sort of take the supply cost as a good indicator of the overall cost of this compared to the other two, which it isn't, but if we did do that, then we would find that the Ravastra Skirmisher is a really decent chunk more expensive than the other two. And generally speaking, the numbers of Ravastra Skirmishers that I see being fielded does indicate that it is harder to get a larger number of these than it is for the other two. So I do think that the cost being higher is accurate. So that being said, I don't tend to find this a very intimidating ship. If my opponent is building this, if the AI is building this, whichever, I don't find this to be a very scary ship to go up against. And the reason is that I know that it's not particularly cost effective. I know that I can just outmass it with Disciples and win that fight just through the numbers there. Because the Ravastra Skirmisher just does not hold up in that sort of fight there. Now, because of that, I think that this is probably the worst out of the 3 basic frigates in some ways there. It's slower, so it's not going to be able to get to the targets trying to snipe out as quickly as, say, the Disciples can. And its damage per cost, especially if we look at supply, is such that it's not really out-damaging the other two. And it doesn't do, particularly well in frigate-to-frigate combat. So, generally speaking, I would say that this is the weakest out of the 3 of them. However, in spite of that, it's still good at the role of, if you need a ship that's got 200 pierce, that's capable of going out there and killing a bunch of key support units or killing enemy aircraft carriers, anything like that, this is still going to do fine, even if it's not going to do an excellent job at it like the Disciple or the Cobalt Light Frigate does. You are going to take more expensive losses when you lose the Ravastras compared to if you are tanking shots with the Cobalts, and you're not going to hunt down those targets as quickly as if you were doing it with the Disciples. So I think that the Ravastra Skirmisher ends up being in a situation where it's just flatly worse than the other two. Now, if you are in a situation where it's like the super late game, and you're in that sort of weird situation where your opponent is building a lot of ships that are very vulnerable to the Ravastra Skirmisher, once you've gotten all of your upgrades, this thing actually does catch up a little bit to the Disciple and the Cobalt. putting it into a position where it's more or less, I would say, cost effective relative to those other ships. So you could definitely build it then if you were in a situation where you thought, if I had a whole bunch of disciples, they would really help in this situation. That same situation applies to the Ravastra Skirmisher. It's just that 90% of the time, the Ravastra Skirmisher gets outscaled by its own tech tree. You're going to, generally speaking, want to switch it out for other ships in your roster instead of just taking these guys. Same with how you eventually phase out of using Disciples, same how you eventually phase out of using the Cobalt Light Frigate. It's just more of an extreme case for Visari, in my opinion. So anyway, let's go over their tech here. So this is what I was talking about as well when I was talking about them scaling up differently than the others. Now, they do scale nicely just from like basic warfare. These give you 3% on weapon damage, and then hull points over here. So plus 6% hull points and plus 9% weapon damage from their basic tech up, which is really strong. That's more damage than Advent get from doing the same thing, and it's like okay hull points. And like tech barely gets anything from increasing these. They get like 10% armor, which is really good, and they get like crippled hull points, which is really bad. So I think that Visari kind of have the best version of this. But the guns here, this is where things are weird. So their first tech for pulse weapons is plus 6%, which is bad. Like that's, it's not great, especially because like they get rapid pulse cycling at late tech 2, so they're paying quite a lot for that to get 18%. And then they're paying, a good amount again to get like plus 30%, which is when they've caught up. So your first 2 upgrades, you're actually not getting huge bonuses to your damage compared to like Advent, and you're keeping pace roughly with tech a little bit. So you're not pulling ahead, certainly, and you're kind of actually falling a little bit behind. You catch up a little bit by this point in time, and you've got that extra 6%, so you're a little bit ahead there. And then you suddenly jump up to 42% here, and then up to 51% up here. So it's a really weird situation where you start off weakest, you upgrade to still being weaker, then you upgrade to still being weaker, then you upgrade to still being weaker, and then you suddenly catch up. And it's not like you fully catch up. I would still say that you're a little bit behind Tech Primacy's Cobalts, but that's only in like the extreme late game situation there. Broadly speaking, a lot of stuff for Visari like comes into play super late game, and as a result, they've got the situation where they start off the game like people view them as being fairly weak in their early game. This is a really good showcase of that at play there. One of the other things that's weird about them is that they cap out at 2,400 maximum supply compared to other people capping out at 2,000. So another interesting thing about their tech tree is that they do also get more value out of that 7 supply than everyone else, because you kind of can ignore that to a certain extent because you've got more supply than everyone else. I'd still say that there's more efficient things for you to do by the time you're getting FTL transmissions, but the fact that you're capable of just having more supply than everyone else, and that you're actually, at more supply even fairly early on, does help mitigate the higher supply cost of some of their ships later on, though. But in any event, further down here, we got the survival upgrades. The reinforced nanite conduits are very good. Hull regeneration in combat. So this is kind of the survivability gimmick that Visari have compared to like the Advent with their shields. The Visari actually just heal their stuff in combat, whereas everyone else goes on the sort of cooldown basically every time they get hit, where they have to be not hit for a certain amount of time before their shields and hit points and all that start recovering. Visari just continue healing all the time. And this means that you really have to focus fire to kill Visari stuff. If you're not focus firing them down, then their stuff tends to just heal back up. If you're hitting a huge swarm of them with weak AoEs, you're not doing any chip damage because they're just going to recover that. You have to finish off the ships that you're hitting against Visari to actually deal any damage to them. So this doesn't tremendously help them because focus fire is already the best way to deal with anything. Like, you're playing against tech who are very vulnerable, but you still want to focus fire them. You're up against Advent, they've got their weird shield bullshit. If you don't focus fire them, they're just going to recycle their shields indefinitely. You kind of want to focus fire against every faction. But Visari, that's kind of feels more so. You really want to focus fire against Visari, thanks to things like the reinforced nanoconduits. Now, One of the upgrades that's actually just really good out of the gate is Skeletal Reinforcement. Visari is probably the hit point faction or the hull point faction if we consider Advent to be the shield faction and Tech to be the armor faction. But Visari actually do also have excellent armor, so it kind of feels like Tech is just the least durable of the three factions. They're still probably considered the armor faction, though. 24% nano hull plating, and then up to 42% from adaptive bulkheads. That's very, very strong up there. You also get access to reintegration. This is your hull regeneration increasing as well as your armor. Then you've also got regenerative hulls, massive amount of hull regeneration, good amount of armor regeneration, and then self-repairing systems. Incredibly bullshit hull regeneration, relatively good armor regeneration. Like, at this point in time, your ships really, you can only kill them by focus firing them down. Now, if you're playing as the Alliance, then you get access to some tech stuff here. That's armor restoration for this one. That gives you plus 15 armor strength and maximum armor points plus 15%. This makes it so that all your ships are a little bit more durable there, but that's not actually the only armor bonus. You get your basic Visari one as well. Atomic Engineering for plus 12% armor points, plus 12% maximum turn speed and max acceleration. This doesn't increase your actual speed, though, so just be mindful of the fact that this just helps you catch up to things by accelerating faster. If they're already moving and you're already moving, then you're never going to catch up based on this research. There has to be moments where there's sort of start and stop stuff going on there. Same thing for Flawless Armor. This dramatically increases that bonus there, up to 30% extra maximum armor points. And then up here you get additional plus 36 armor strength. This means that Alliance can get up to 51 extra armor strength, which is higher than the 50% that you get for Tech, which is why I think that Tech might not actually be the armor faction. For shields, you get regenerative shielding. This means that you're regenerating in combat with your shields as well. And it's less than your hull points, but it's still pretty good there. Bifurcative shielding gives you more maximum shield points and increases your shield regeneration. You get access to the reverse engineered shields, which gives you a shield burst as well as more shield points, more shield regeneration. This is very strong for Visari because if your ships are capable of regenerating their hull long enough, you're keeping that cycling, you're not getting focused down, then having the shield suddenly pop back in is really quite nice there. And then you've got multi-pass shield arrays. Plus 24% from 12%. This is a pretty weak max shield point bonus, but your base shields are already fairly high compared to Tech's, and you're not really relying on them as much as Advent. So even though this is a lot weaker, this is still okay, especially because your shields are going to be the ones that take the damage first. That means that you're going to be regenerating shields in combat much more so than any of your other armor or hull points. So the fact that your shields are regenerating quickly, you're going to end up with a lot more effective shields than it might look like. So this is quite strong as well there. Now, this is still a fairly fragile ship. By the time you get to these really late techs, you're not really going to be building, hopefully, a whole bunch of Ravastra skirmishers. Hopefully you've got other things to build by that point in time. But these are the things that make it so that the overall Ravastra skirmisher is catching up to things like the Disciple and things like the Cobalt. Because once you've got all of these upgrades, the stats on this thing go so out of control that even though you're outnumbered by quite a bit, you're still going to be doing okay. Now, as far as your other upgrades go, you've really got nothing in culture that helps you as far as this goes. You've got access to Xeno production if you're playing Alliance. This just gives you faster build time, which is not great, but it is something. It is something. And the other thing that you could potentially get is, of course, your phase resonance. So phase resonator gives you 60% or 60 seconds worth of phase resonance when you hop into a system. That means you get a bonus when you jump from one system to another for 60 seconds. You can increase that with Phasic Strike, and you can increase that with Resonance Mastery, but you also have to actually have the bonus assigned. So Phase Resonance is up here. For the Ravastra Skirmisher, you don't really gain any benefit whatsoever from utility, so you're probably not going to go that if you're going for a heavy Ravastra Skirmisher type build. Now, mobility is quite good for these guys, since they may be a mobile interception force that you're using to quickly hunt down enemy things that are trying to slip past you, or you're trying to do raids or something like that. What mobility does is it makes it so that you can get higher phase jump speed, and if you're in a small enough sort of situation, you can get from one end to the other of a small asteroid or whatever within a minute and hop across there. This makes it so that you can go faster, and then sort of goes all the way up here. Now, where it really matters is once you start getting maximum speed bonuses, that's going to make it so that these guys are capable of traveling much, much better. But by the time you're at like tier 3 on mobility, it's kind of later game. You're probably not going to be focusing too much on the Ravastra skirmishers. Now, combat is where you're probably going to get the most utility for these guys, but you have to have your opponent sort of not understanding how your phase resonance works. What you can sort of do here is get like minus 3% weapon reload, minus 6, minus 9, 12, 15. And once you get to tier 3, you're also looking at additional weapon damage of 3, 6, and 9%. These sort of stack with each other in a very synergistic way, and they also stack with your other bonuses, your upgrades from tech. And it makes it so that your ships are really, really powerful. They're really scary for that 60 seconds or up to 4 minutes once you hop in there. Now, you really need to have very good awareness and scouting and stuff like that, because you want to land right on top of your opponent just as they're trying to like move across a system there. You want to get them when they're really out of position. And if you can do that, you can gravity warhead them, you can catch them with their pants down. The ability to like just absolutely slam them with that extra damage does mean that your Ravastra skirmishers are going to be doing a little bit better than normal. But even then, if you don't have like fairly high into the combat tree, it's not like it's going to make up for the shortfalls of that particular ship. So I would sort of watch out for that. It is a great equalizer though. One of the better ways to do this is like if you're forced to get into a fight that you think is kind of bad and you're retreating into one of your own provinces that's got a bunch of built-up defenses, combat is great in that situation because you're going to be retreating back and your opponent has to make a choice. They can either follow you and know that they're fighting into phase resonance, because as you land in your own territory, that still counts as a jump. And if they follow you, then they're getting hit by the defenses, they're getting hit by your ships, and if they don't follow you, you got a chance to regroup for free. So phase resonance is something that makes it like really easy to play defensive around. But in any event, you have to sort of push towards your opponent if you're going that route there. In any event, that's going to be everything about this thing. I do think it is the worst out of the three at both its role and against each other. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't build these to counter those sort of 200 durability type units there. Just have us run up there real quick and just sort of beat their asses. Their stats are good enough that they can do that. They're durable enough that they're not going to like immediately fold when you send in fairly small numbers of them. It's just that they're probably the weakest of the three at that particular role. In any event, though, that is going to be everything for today. I hope you found this one enjoyable, and of course, as always, hope to see you guys all next time.